It's Friday, September 20th, 2024. Thing there. I guess I forgot where I was starting with. Well, what we normally start with, I got it. I recovered. Took a second. Where we normally start, because I do have some programming notes. I think I was getting them mixed up. But let's start with the promotional segment, where I tell you that if you are in the mood to support our show, it's very easy. All you have to do is go to supportourshow.com, which, if you don't remember it, is always in the comments of the show notes, so you can copy and paste from there. And the only other thing that's not covered on that page, because I'm not entirely sure it still works, but I'm not entirely sure it doesn't, is that if you can try. If you try it and it doesn't work, or if you try and it does, by all means, let me know. Code OZONE, I believe, still gets you 2 months free on Libsyn. So if you want to try out using that service for whatever it does, for you, that's what I mean. I know what it does.
Start a podcast. Make lots of money.
Sure. I mean, there really aren't any around. You know, we're one of, 5, 6, 7 total in the world?
At most,
certainly nobody of note is doing any to cash in on a trend. So, yeah, go for it. Why not? Some programming notes just for the next week's show. Next week's show will be Dr. Doug Bielmeyer and I discussing creativity for a couple of hours. So, that one...
Wow, you did a concept show.
We did, yes, we did. I realized... This is the funny part, because we've done a bunch of these double feature shows. But the first episode I had him on, half of that was really us trying to make sure that the other wasn't a maniac, I think. And then the rest of it, we were... No, seriously. I mean, when you don't talk to somebody for a long time, you don't know.
No, I totally get it. I totally get it. Yeah.
So...
And you know what? Listen, I was thinking about that recently, because I was joking around with my wife about... what happens if you're... We watched something where someone's spouse passed away. Oh, we're watching Old Man with Jeff Bridges.
Okay.
And that his wife passed away in that show, and he meets somebody new in that show. And my wife and I were talking about this idea of having been married for 15 years or something like that,
sure.
or more, and then suddenly being single and being on the market, and if you're even interested in being with somebody, but how scary it must be to try to figure people out. And to some degree it is exactly like making friends or reconnecting with old friends, because if long enough goes by and there's a maturity jump, then I totally get the idea. Are one of us maniacs, where you're both kind of sitting there going, did one of us become a devout religious Republican when the other wasn't looking? Right. Are my off-color jokes gonna insult you? And it's it is weird, and it's almost like you're making friends again for the first time for the second time.
It can be, yeah, it can be that. So that was the first half, and then the second half we were really talking about his album and the making of it. We were playing clips from it, so we really didn't go beyond that, and then we jumped into the movie stuff. So I wanted to do one where we were talking about because he does a whole show on where he talks to experimental musicians about how they make their music. And I was like, oh, yeah, let's do a whole show where we're talking about creativity and, how things are done, especially because experimental music, I really don't know how music is made. I really don't. So it was a good kind of back and forth thing. So that will be next Friday's show. And that's because there's going to be a couple of shows coming up, which I won't say specifically who they are because I don't like to jinx it, because scheduling things can come up. It's not because I think they're going to bail, but you never know. One is going to be a returning guest, and the other will be the first time I've talked to somebody who has testified in front of Congress. So that'll be fun. I will try not to come off like a complete buffoon. So there's your teasers for those two. That one might be contentious in a number of ways. We'll see.
Oh, you've been busy.
You know what? It's exactly how it typically is, where I send things out, spaced out, and scheduling can be difficult. And then 2 or 3 of them all come back at once saying, I've got this space of time, and it happens to be in like the same week span.
Yeah, you know what? Your luck is running a high. You should, honestly, you should email Coop at this point.
Yeah, I probably could. Yeah. See, yeah. And space it out and try to do that. Yeah, I could. Yeah.
I mean, the hardest part for that would be for you not to fanboy.
Well, in some, you know what? I actually think I'd be okay on that front because I've followed his stuff and interacted with him here and there enough that I think that the fanboy part, I don't know. I don't look at him that way.
Okay.
I have a tremendous respect for his talent. Don't get me wrong. I do. You know that.
And I honestly, I adore his Lego buildings.
Well, that's part. See, that's the thing is there's all these
there's
little niche things.
A few funny things about Coop. Yeah, like let me tell you, I love his nude photography. I love his Lego buildings and how detailed, intricate he gets with it. Right?
Does he? Whew.
And then I still love his art. So it's very amusing to me. It's like these 3 very kind of, different aspects.
And he likes hot rods too. I mean, he's big into cars. So
yeah, he loves hot rods. Yeah. So, man, I recently found out that I can put a lift kit in my van, and I got really excited about that because I'm a dork.
Okay.
I love vans. I've come to realize that that's really the car for me. Like, there's people who like hot rods, people and I love all those. They're beautiful cars. But for me, as an individual, I like a van. I like being able to just throw whatever the fuck I want in there. I like having seats whenever I want or not. I like the idea of a car that you could comfortably fall asleep in the back, fully, like, just extended, right? Like, not all curled up in a ball like you're in trouble. Well, I love that. Plus, what's that?
I'm just gonna tell you.
Yeah.
If you decide to do that.
Yeah.
Run whatever you're going to use by me so I can run it by my father-in-law, because what a lot of people don't understand is if you use the wrong one or do it wrong, you
I was going
to,
but I was going to, but I've also done a lot of research on this. You know me when I get into a rabbit hole, where I've just started reading a lot of reviews and it's from a reputable source.
Don't buy into that stuff. There's
a
lot there. Well, don't get me wrong, reviews don't tell you long term a lot of times.
Oh no. I know. And the funny thing is that a lot of people were complaining about like the axles going in their cars, but these people are putting them on vans that have like 200,000 to 300,000 miles on.
Well, there's so much that's changed about how like tolerances and things work.
Yeah, now. Exactly. But the thing is, I love my van. But the thing is, when I started driving a van in 2001. They had some height to them. I drove a Sienna, and I actually really like them. I mean, it's like somebody called it a mommy missile, and I mean that's kind of I kind of like that. But the first ones from 2001, they had a little bit of they were all-wheel drive, which I love, and they had a little bit of clearance on them, so like you weren't just like car height, you were slightly higher, which I liked. And then when they went hybrid with them, they basically had to drop them to put the battery in. And it was like kind of 2 negative aspects that there's no, you cannot, well you could, but there's no like tucked in tire or spare, right? Because they basically needed room for seats to kind of disappear into the floor. So there's no spare, and they used to have run flats, and I actually really loved the run flats because like I've had flats a few times and gone another 50 to 100 miles on the run flat, doing maybe like 35-40 miles per hour. Like I really pushed those things, and I loved them. My wife hated them. she thought that it was the roughest ride, and I actually thought the ride was good, and I liked the idea that if I had a flat tire, I just fucking keep on going. I didn't care.
Sure.
But they got rid of those because, I guess people complain. So that's kind of the big thing. They lowered them, and there's no run flats anymore. But I found out recently that there's a so Siennas get raised quite often because they are a common van that is used for wheelchair access, right? So there's actually a company that professionally raises them to put wheelchair ramps on them, right? So it happens quite often, right? And I just found out recently that there's a kit you can get that will lift it to the height of like a Tiguan. Like I can't remember. You drive like a small SUV, right?
Yeah, Sorrento.
Yeah, so it's like I'd probably have the height of that, but in a van, and like that's really all I want. Like I just want to just the low SUV height because I do enough dumb shit, that it'd just be nice. Like I don't even need to change out my tires. I just want some height. I used to have height, but just honestly, now that I live in New Jersey and the weather is so tropical, I don't even know if I need it. But I got excited about it. I get excited about these like really nerdy things. Like other people are like, I want a Lambo, and I'm like, it's beautiful, but like every time I've sat in a really exotic sports car, I look at it and I go, this is really beautiful, but it's like it's just so uncomfortable. And the thing is, there's a story from my youth I like to tell, which is basically there was this girl that was in my life that I was always friends with, and she was really, really beautiful. And we were really good friends. And we never really got together. And at one point or another, we finally did get together. And the sex was just awful. Like, really, I don't know what it was. We were just completely incompatible physically. Like, have you ever had that with any of the people in your life where you tried to get with and you were just like, wow, we are going completely in opposite directions, like the way
I would never go that far. The closest was probably that there was somebody who wanted to be choked, and I was like, I won't do that.
Oh yeah, I'm not.
Like,
yeah,
nope.
I recently read an article about how choking is, I guess, apparently making a big comeback in Gen Z. And
I don't think it ever really went away. I mean, once you
no,
realize
no, but they're saying the numbers are quite high. People who have tried it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whereas the numbers have been kind of low in the past. And the two times in my life that I was asked to do that, both times I was really uncomfortable because I'm kind of like, you're physically doing something at the time. You're distracted, right? I just find it too easy a situation to accidentally kill somebody, right? I mean, it feels a bit.
That was exactly it because she had a very skinny neck. And I'm
yes,
like,
I mean they all have skinny necks.
Well, no, okay, yes, but if
um,
certain women are more muscled and they have more, there's, I would be less concerned that I could literally if I slipped in the wrong position, I could kill somebody. Certain people are more worried about that than others.
So what a way to go to prison, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So yes. So whenever I think about really beautiful cars, I always think of this situation I had, and I always think to myself, yeah, it's a beautiful car, but that's not how I drive. And it's the same, with this girl. She was gorgeous, and she was beautiful before and after, but physically, like we just didn't jive. She was one of those people that I think that needed to be. She liked to be pretty liquored up for sex, whereas like I didn't like being liquored up for sex because I felt like I was missing something. Like getting on an amusement park ride with a blindfold.
I'm with you.
So yeah, but I get excited about dumb things in cars, and I like vans. So whenever I can do something dumb with a van, I'm kind of like, yeah, But yes, you are correct. Whenever you do anything aftermarket to your car, yes, be very careful because it's very easy to fuck your car.
Find somebody that that actually works with the stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm not putting it on. I'm not.
No, I don't.
On.
No,
yeah.
I don't even mean putting it on. I mean.
Yeah, but remember, I grew up with people who were regularly fucking their cars up.
Yeah, no,
so
it's something where you or your family could die if done wrong.
Oh, I've seen spectacular fuck ups.
You buy a bad mouse for your computer and it don't work. Well.
Oh yeah, no. The whole question is, is this still good at 80 miles per hour down the highway?
That's it.
Type of thing,
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I want to do it, but there is that part of me that wonders if I even need it. When I lived in Vermont, I got actual snow, and actual
Well,
trouble sometimes. I
whether
got
you
stuck.
need it isn't necessarily what
No.
need
You
to
know what?
ask for
Listen,
everything.
I am from the school of especially with cars. Get what you need. Because when you're younger, I had this. When I first started driving vans, I wasn't necessarily a fan. I just was a newly minted father and realized I needed something that was big enough because we had a lot of accoutrements for kids, right? And what I wanted was like was it the SRT8 Charger? I think that's what it was. I wanted a Charger. I was like, it's a 4-door, it's a V8. I was like, yeah, right. That's gonna be my family vehicle. And then I drove one and I contemplated what it was like getting a car seat in one of those things. And then I ended up in a Sienna, and I was like, you know what? I was like, there's so much room back here. I was like, I could fit a ton of people. And I think that's the thing. From your youth, you think about the cars you spent a lot of time in. I spent a lot of time in station wagons and vans because that's the cars you could pack the most people in. Right? You didn't have to leave anybody behind. Everybody could come. Those were your adventure wagons. Those were the things that you did the most shit. You did the big car trips in cars like that, right? So it's like, yeah, a sports car is good looking and all, but like I want to go places and do things. So, so at that point I realized I transitioned over and I gave up that idea of like, oh, I need this car with this giant engine, and I'm just kind of like, no, I'm good with this. It's like just give me what I actually need. And sometimes it's a lot cheaper. So yes, living in New Jersey for me feels almost tropical. Like we got snow, I think, once this winter. Whereas like up in Vermont, it's like we used to get snow early on in like late fall, and then we would just have snow on the ground until spring suddenly appeared for like a week. Well, that's not true. We'd get mud season for a week or two, and then it'd be spring. But it was like, yeah, we got a lot more bad weather. In the years I was up there, I had multiple situations where cars were stuck in the snow and shit like that. I once went off my driveway. I had a really long driveway, and I once went off my driveway because the snow situation was so bad, and I had to get towed on my own driveway. It was that bad. I had narrowly missed a tree and just tucked it right into the snow, and the driveway dropped like 3-4 feet off the side, and I was ass in the air, like. I'm amazed I didn't break anything, but yeah, it's like I don't get that down here, and
Yeah,
so
I do
I'm on
not
the
miss
fence.
snow, that's for sure.
Oh man, and the thing is, I do.
Well,
I
no,
so
sorry.
miss
I
the
should say
snow.
I don't miss driving in the snow. I miss the snow.
Yeah, you mean like
it's the
I don't
winter,
miss the danger part of
Yeah,
it, but I
that's
do.
it.
But there's something nice about like just. I mean,
Oh,
I
we
don't-
used to go
I've
into
only-
a parking lot and do donuts in the snow and have it make your own winter storm, sure. But
I've only ever been in a whiteout situation once, right? And that was really scary, I'll admit, because we didn't know where the road dropped off. We couldn't see it. We couldn't see ahead more than like a foot. We didn't know if someone was coming. I was with my father-in-law, and the kids were in the back, and we were in a whiteout, and like it was really, when you're in your car with an older adult who theoretically has more experience than you, and you both give this look like we're in some deep shit now, aren't we?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't miss that, but I miss like all the other things, and I do miss sliding through the turns now and then, and and honestly, it's getting calls from people being like, "Hey, I'm stuck in the snow. Can you tow me out?" Shit like that. Like, it's kind of fun. It's an event. Go to do stuff. I mean, I didn't like flying off the driveway, but that was kind of my fault because, like you said, doing donuts. I did try to slide it. There's no one in the car but me. Let's be very clear. I wouldn't do that with the kids, but I tried to slide it into the driveway, and I just went right off. Ah, man. I am like a totally different person when my kids and wife are in the car, and or when they're not in. Like, there's this road by us now. It's really weird. We have this weird sort of country windy road that's like off the back end of my street, and a lot of motorcyclists love to use it. It's very funny, and when I'm with my family in the car, I take it really slow, and I'm kind of like do. When I'm by myself, I take that thing like it's a fucking racetrack, and it's got this fantastic turn on it, where it basically wobbles back and forth for like almost like 6 turns. It just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you just shoot through that at high speed. And there's this little voice in the back of my head that's like, "You're gonna die. Stop this." And then I'm like, "Oh yeah." It's like, I got kids. It's like, I don't want to be dead for the afternoon. Someone needs to pick them up. But yes, I like vans, and I am seriously considering the possibility of lifting my van. It'll be fun, but we'll see if I need it. Like I said, I live in New Jersey now. It's weird.
Sure.
It's tropical. I mean, it shouldn't be. It's that whole global warming thing. Like, I don't remember New Jersey being tropical when I grew up here.
Yeah.
Like, there are seasons, but like, we came down here and like, I honestly have these like heavy duty winter coats for Vermont that like I don't know if I'm ever gonna wear them again. Like, these are like proper cold weather coats that I used to wear when I was like waiting for like the bus in the morning and shit like that sometimes. And I don't know if I'm ever gonna touch them again because it's just I know saying it's tropical is funny because you are where you are, but like California is always kind of hot, right? Even when it's cool, it's kind of still warmish cool, and that's normal. I mean, it's getting extreme, but like it's still getting. It's not like you're suddenly getting ice storms. You know what I mean?
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Like, whereas like here, there used to be winter. Like, I remember winter when I was a kid down here. Like, I remember Halloween's being cold. I just tell my wife that. She always laughs at me because she grew up in Massachusetts, and it's like, yeah, we used to have cold winters. I was like, and now it's like, I'm wondering if I have to wear shorts on fucking Halloween this year. You know what I mean? So it's yeah. The requirements for certain parts of this country are changing, and like the stereotypical idea of something is not necessarily what it is anymore. Things are getting warmer. Things are getting different. Not to mention, we're in this weird. I never took this for granted, but this idea that we're in this kind of weird spot where we're in this part of Jersey that's surrounded by these kind of low hills, and everything misses us because we're in this kind of encircling of hills. So like, people like an hour out of us get like horrible weather, and then it'll just pass us completely. Like, all the storms miss us. It's really weird. But I mean, you're getting this in the fact that you're getting such extreme temperature hikes.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've spoken to you a couple times.
What do you call it? Did you see that Phoenix had? They said 2 or 3 days ago that Phoenix had 100+ degrees since May.
Oh, God.
Since May.
Jesus, I don't want to live there. Ah, gee, Arizona, man. I'm sure the high altitude. No, you know what they are, because Flagstaff, Arizona is beautiful, right? But like, I was in Phoenix for a short time, and it just felt.
Oh, here it is. 100 days of 100+ degree weather.
It just felt scoured. Like, it's just the landscape felt scoured.
Yeah. Well, the problem there, I think, is that it doesn't cool off. Whatever it is about there, it doesn't cool off.
No, it's fuck off hot at night. Like, that's the other thing too, is you're in deep shit when it's like midnight and it's still like 90 degrees plus.
Yeah. I mean, we have had that a few times this year, but I can't complain.
I spent
that
like I said, I spent many of my summers in Florida with my grandparents, and down there that was always the hilarious thing, is that you'd go out. You go out after like 10 o'clock when like the sun was down and it was dark, and it would still be so fucking hot and humid. You're just like, does this ever stop? And then it does though. That's the weird thing, is that sometimes like you'd leave really early in the morning for something, you'd get out like 6 a.m. and it would be quite cool, like weirdly cool, and then within like an hour it'd be like 90.
I was gonna say, the problem is it doesn't last. It just goes away so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think it's a skill though to understand what you do and don't really need. I think it's if you get better at that, I think it's a good way to conserve money as you get older, because it's very easy to want stuff, and you want cool stuff. Right. I think cool stuff is fun, right? But I think as you get older, I think it gets theoretically you should get better at going, that's cool, but I don't need it.
Yeah.
And because I mean, it's the whole like I got this with, I think with computers is where I really got this, which is the whole, I look at these computers and I go, I don't need that processor. I don't need that.
Right.
This is when I got out of gaming on the computers, where I was just like, you know what? I was like, I don't want to have to keep upgrading my system to keep up with you bastards. I'm just going to get a console and make you come to me. And you know what?
Yeah.
Haven't blinked since. Great. Sure, I can't run a game at whatever, but you know what? I don't even think my eyes give a shit at this point.
No, I know that has been kind of my thing for a while. Is I can't tell, because people are like, oh, this is at 1080 and I got a 4K screen. And I'm like, well, number one, it scales correctly because that's a multiplier, so that's fine. And the other is I can't see it.
Yeah,
they just announced that PlayStation Pro, which has a number of other problems in the way that they did it, but I sat there and went, I don't think I care.
Yeah,
I don't care about ray tracing. I don't care.
And here's the thing: right now, Joe and I are playing our way through Doom 2.
Yes, we are.
And and here's the thing: it looks like shit because it's a game 20, 30 years old. Is Doom 2?
Ooh, it's 30 something now.
Yeah, there you go. It's
Doom 1 was released in 1993, which makes it 31 years old.
Wow.
And Doom 2 is next year, so 30 years.
Yeah, it looks like shit. Of course it does, because it was one of the first-person shooters, right? But here's the thing. Doom 2 is still hard.
Why is it?
Like, I've gotten more frustrated with that fucking first-person shooter than I have with any other first-person shooter in, like, a decade.
Yeah.
Right? It's hard. And the thing is, the graphics, even with the graphics as dated as they are, you're still having fun because the gameplay is still challenging. Listen, I would love to be able to look up and down and, and jump and crouch. I mean, those are things, I don't know when those got brought into first-person shooters, but they are sorely needed. Especially when they're trying to get you to platform, and you're like, it's like trying to platform while wearing a neck brace. You're like, I can't look down. I can't look down. But the games are still good. They're still challenging. They're still fun. I didn't need the graphics. And it's not that I don't want the graphics. I want games to be pretty. But I just realized that I do not require cutting edge. So, this is always the thing with Crysis. Wasn't it Crysis that always made people want to upgrade? Like, oh, the new Crysis
can it
games.
run Crysis?
Yeah, can it run Crysis?
There's kind of the opposite ends. One was can it run Doom, and that was how minimal of the hardware. Like, I think they made a Bluetooth toothbrush run it.
Yeah.
And then so that was the one end, and the other end was Crysis, which now it's Cyberpunk 2077 at max settings. That's kind of the new Crysis.
Yeah, that's the new. Yeah, and I just look at that and I'm like, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to miss something. I don't know if I'm missing anything. I mean, like, if you told me that there was gameplay I couldn't do because of that, but the thing is, I'm going to be able to play the whole game and it's going to look mostly gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't necessarily need it to be more real than real. So I think that's a skill. I mean, if there's any weird things about getting older, but I don't think that's about getting older. I think that's philosophical. I think there's a lot of people that figure this out at various stages in life, and it's just that idea that I don't need this. I don't need the. You want it, for sure. You want. I mean, listen. You want the biggest, most powerful supercomputer thing, and you want to be able to run whatever the hell you want. But then in your day-to-day life, very few of us actually need to run these things. My wife needs more computing power than I do, I realize, and I laugh because for years I had like 20 times the computing power that she had. And like I was playing, I was playing World of Warcraft while listening to college courses and like, with just like running like a couple programs at once, kind of just chilling. I didn't really need the computing power, so. But it's hard to divvy that between what you want and what you need, and then being okay with what you need, and like kind of finding a way to revel in it. There's something I don't have it yet, but there is something nice about that kind of minimalist feel. I think I get that when I travel. It's one of the reasons I like to travel. And I wonder if you get this, which is that I know that you don't like to fly, but you do enough car trips. I like the idea of paring everything down to my needs and then just taking off. And I'm not a huge overpacker. I don't like to massively overpack. I like to pare it down, and I like to feel like, you almost feel kind of light when you travel. You know, where you're like, it's just you know, I have this one suitcase, I'm good to go, right? And
yeah, I definitely try to do that.
Yeah, well, I imagine with you and your OCD, it must become it must be an art form at this point.
It's fun.
I mean, you used to show up at my place with your PlayStation packed in its original packaging.
Yes.
And then unpack it so we could play games.
Correct.
Because I don't think at that point I had the PlayStation you had. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I adore that. I mean, I don't think that a PlayStation is necessarily, you know, on the needs list all the time. But, like, you were so meticulous about it. It was fantastic. So I imagine that must extend to your... Do you wife and you pack a bag if you're traveling really light, or you always pack separately?
No. Well, okay. I shouldn't say it like that. It's almost always that we can use one bag, and then I have a backpack for all the electronics. So it's two bags.
There you go. Yeah.
So, yeah, I have basically a computer bag, and every piece of electronics can go in that bag, and I know how to get it all in there.
Rarely take a computer with me anymore when I travel. That used to be like a mainstay for me, and now I find that I
still take a MacBook Air because it's just they have not. I would love to rely on my iPad, but I can't.
How many computers do you have?
I have one. Well, I have 2 laptops and my iPad, so I guess that would be, if you consider... Actually, I should say 2, because I don't... If you're talking about mobile, I have my desktop, which I don't take with me, because that would be...
Yes, I mean, so you have your desktop, and then you have 2 laptops, and you have your iPad.
Yeah, and the MacBook Air is an Intel one. It's not new, but it still works. So
but and the MacBook Air is tiny as hell.
I guess technically I have 3, because I have an old MacBook Pro, too.
I find that traveling with my iPad... I have an iPad Pro with the keyboard, and that's enough for me. But honestly, I barely use it. I've just used my phone for most things at this point. And I've just kind of adjusted to that. I caught myself the other day. I sat down in front of my computer. I had the table down, and I sat down at my computer. And then I started doing shit on my phone. I was doing that for like 20 minutes, and I was like, wait a minute. I am sitting in front of my computer. I was like,
yeah.
What?
The problem is that, for me, I am very aware that there are still pockets of things. I just ran into this with my mother. My mother is coming out to visit us, and we were trying to get plane tickets. And we were trying to do them through JetBlue, so it's a PSA for anybody who wants to book through JetBlue. And we could not get her payment to... We'd get all the way to the end, and it would inevitably fail. And then I tried my credit card, and it was failing. And it was failing in this weird way. And I tried.
On a mobile device?
No. Well,
okay.
Okay. So I tried Windows and Mac. I tried Firefox. I tried Brave. I tried Edge, which is Microsoft's thing. And what was the other one? And I tried Safari. And I was like, okay, I've tried 2 computers and 4 browsers. Obviously, Safari was Mac only, but the other ones you could use on Windows. And I'm like, I'm going to call them. Now, here's something. Number one, JetBlue says they'll charge you if you call them now to book tickets, which is ridiculous. But they don't.
They'll charge you like a service fee?
$25 to book through a phone.
Wow, that's some dick shit right there. Okay.
So I get to the person who was very nice, very helpful, and did not charge me because she said, "Well, did you try Chrome?" And I said, "No, it's the one I didn't try because I hate Chrome. I hate Google Chrome. I hate Google and I hate Chrome. Well, I don't hate Google. I don't trust Google and I don't like Chrome." So sure enough, Chrome comes up, went right through. So she said, "Yeah, the only one you can use is Chrome."
Wow,
so,
I didn't realize they had an alignment.
Yeah, and she said specifically that you can only really reliably do it on a computer. Mobile devices don't work.
Wow.
So there again, if you had to do something, that's why until it's universal, which it is not, I will not be without if I'm going more than 2 hours from home where I'm a ways away, then I will not go without a computer. Even an older one is still going to be better than it's still more reliable.
Yeah, I
don't trust these things.
I haven't had a situation pop up yet like that where I've been unable to do something. Honestly,
I get that. I rigged up a way to
Yeah.
remote desktop from the iPad, but it was so miserable.
Oh, I think I remember this. Yeah.
And I was just like, it worked, but there was so much lag to it.
I've never had a situation pop up where I needed that. I mean, I can imagine situations where that could be a problem, but I've never had it pop up. And I think it's just one of those things where, like, I have my phone on me, so, like, when I'm looking stuff up, I tend to just pull it out. But I was in my office. I actually had time. I was in my office, and I was at my computer, but I just, like, autopiloted. It was just
well, this is one of those strange things where I really do. I have become a bit of an evangelist for the MacBook Air specifically.
Well, because it is so small.
It's so light. It's so easy, and it is a full computer.
And the thing is, my iPad Pro, because I have the keyboard, it feels like a MacBook Air.
Yes, and a lot of people just rely on a mobile device.
I wish that you could, like, I'm not that good with computers anymore. I wish that I could just slave a MacBook Air to my main computer, so that I could just use it almost like an iPad, where it's like everything is, Wait,
what do you mean? No, explain.
Nothing is permanent. Oh, I just want to run it like it's an iPad, where, like, I don't want to have to, because the thing is, with a computer, inevitably you have to sit there. You and I both like to have pretty clean computers, so you inevitably have to go through and make sure all the file structure's there, and find your files, what files you bring with you. Like, you got to organize it. And I like the idea that with an iPad, there really is no organization. There's your apps, and then you got some photos and music, and that's it. You're good. And I like that. I like
you could do that. You could set it up where it was essentially a overpowered iPad. You could do it.
Yeah. You know what? I'm sure they'll get there. That seems to be the convergence we're heading for. But either way, it gets back to the idea that you do like to pare down when you travel, and it feels good to pare down.
I've come very close to only taking an iPad. And like I said, if it's 2 hours or less, I'm okay with it. Yeah. Because mine is never 2 hours or less. Well, that's the thing, right? I do not want to be stuck.
Yeah.
And the reality is, I know, even if it's only a 5%, there is a 5% chance that thing is not going to work.
Yeah, I find that
a computer is a computer is a computer, and there is no matter what they say, if it's not a laptop or a desktop, it's not a computer. It's that simple.
Yeah.
It just is not. Not to mention, my iPad the other day, I had to wipe it because it kept telling me I was using the wrong password. And I've used the same password on that thing for a long time.
Weird.
Now, fortunately, I was able to restore it in about 2 hours, so it was no big deal.
Is this one of those, like, 50-character passwords you have yours?
Yeah, so, but well, no, actually, no. That one is,
man.
No, that was maybe 22.
Let me tell you about passwords. I went on a road trip the other day.
Computer chips. Let me tell you about them.
Go on.
I was on a road trip with my kids. It was just me and the kids. And we ended up going kind of late on the way back, and usually my kids tend to play on their iPads, like when we're on the long drives, because I remember how much it sucked, and I wanted to give them, because we had stayed out late, and they were kind of gonna miss other things. I was trying to be nice and give them my what do you call it? Not remote access.
Remote desktop?
No. When you have in your phone, set up a hotspot for them, right?
Oh, got it. Yes.
Because my phone had service, so I was like, because their iPads, they're like pretty much dead terminals. I was like, you guys can log into my thing, and you can utilize internet stuff. You can watch shows, or And I told them it's not gonna be fast, but it's better than nothing, right? And so I had them in the back seat, and I was trying to just glance at my phone and give them the password so they could just log into it. And I realized that was one of my obscene passwords. About half my passwords are horribly pornographically obscene and describe filthy, filthy sex acts, which I think are pretty good passwords, I think, because you have to be so specifically filthy. And I realized that was the password, and my kids are in the back, and they're like, "Oh, what's the password?" And I looked at my phone, and I was like, I can't. And I was like, what if I spell it? If I spell it, will they not understand? Like I don't think auto asphyxiation. If I spell it, will they not know what that is? But in the end, luckily they have that feature where you can just share a password. So I was like, okay, saved. I was saved from having to actually read it out to them. And then I was like, I wonder if I should rethink my whole pornographic password system, even though it's worked well for me for like years and years and years. It's just that, most of the time I'm giving passwords out to adults. But I guess, you know what? Some point or another, I might have to give a password out to my in-laws and that might be hilariously awkward. Yeah, I mean, I know.
Well,
you
the
have
challenge could be to do synonyms, or placeholders that are equally gross but funny sounding.
equally gross.
Yeah,
That's a
well,
good
yeah,
challenge,
yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love disgusting passwords. My wife, she once saw my password.
I sure
list.
love two sausages in the pig trough, and you know what that means.
Yeah, well, she once saw my password list, and she was like, "This is awful." She's like, "Some of these are so terrible," and a lot of them are about her as well, so that might make things awkward. But yeah, it's quite funny. Yeah. But I actually had something I want to talk about.
I was wondering if this was all just the opener.
No, this wasn't my opener.
Sure.
This is just us talking.
No,
that's the problem.
No, I mean this was the preamble to the opener.
No,
that's fine.
Yeah, yes, this is the preamble to the preamble for your reviews. But I wanted to mention this to you because I thought that you might find this amusing. So my wife reads a lot of spy novels, a lot of action spy novels. She loves them, right? That's her thing. And the thing is, she does that, but she also gives me a lot of shit about comic books where she's like, oh god, you're reading your male soap operas, and she doesn't really, she's not being mean-spirited about it. She's just, it's like these little jabs, you know what I mean? And she's right, they are like, soap operas. Cyclops has come back to life for the third or fourth time, right? So the other day she experienced something unique to her, and I got to kind of bring her to my reality, which was essentially she's reading this series. It's the Mitch Rapp series of novels, which is a spy series, right? And the original writer was this author, Vince Flynn. This is a lot like Tom Clancy, right? So Vince Flynn wrote them, and he wrote a fucking ton of them, right? And then he died. And they brought another author in. And this guy that they brought in, I think his name was Kyle Mills, he was quite good at writing decent spy novels, even though my wife agreed that he had changed the character somewhat, right? But she was okay with it. They handed off to this other guy. It's cool. He wrote a bunch of novels. I guess that guy walked away, and the publisher was like, "Shit, people love these these Mitch Rapp. That's the character's name, Mitch Rapp novels." So, and they do that thing where they put like with Tom Clancy, where they put Vince Flynn real big on it, which is the original author. And then underneath, in small writing, they put the name of the current author that they have writing them, right? So Kyle Mills, he left, and they brought this other guy on, Don Bentley. And my wife didn't realize it because she picked up the book, and the book says Vince Flynn on it like normal. And then the blurb at the top of the book refers to the last book that the Kyle Mills guys wrote. So she had no idea that it was a different author. And she started reading it, and she immediately did not like it. She immediately was like, what the fuck is going on here? She was like, the copy editing was terrible. There were some weird phrases that she was like, and she's an editor, so I mean that drives her really mad. There was like misspellings, and then on top of that, there was a weird timeline error where I guess this guy had come in and decided he wanted to write something that was kind of from earlier on timeline in the series. But you know how difficult that is to weave that to
yeah,
what do you call it?
Retroactively,
to kind of get that in there so it doesn't disturb anything.
Retconning.
Yeah, but it wasn't meant to be a retcon. It was meant to just be a story that happened in between other stories, right? And she got all annoyed because she was like, wait a minute. She's like, he's talking to this character. Doesn't the author realize that character in that timeline would not be in this position, but he would be in this other position? I was like, and this other character, like she was... Honest,
so it is retconning because he's changing what happened.
Well,
before.
yeah, because he ended up changing stuff, right?
That's what I mean.
So
that's why
she was really annoyed, and she actually wrote this like nasty review about it, and I was laughing my ass off because I was like, that really pisses you off, right? And she's like, yeah, and I'm like, this is comics, and she was like, what do you mean? I was like, this is something I have experienced in comics since I was a kid. I'm so unfazed by this at this point. And she was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, I was like, I love Batman, right? So. Frank Miller does a run on Batman, and it's incredible. And then they give it to some other guy I've never heard of, and I'm like, this guy sucks. And then some other guy writes an Elseworld story, and it's amazing. It's a fucking incredible Batman story. But then I go back to like the mainstream Batman run, and I'm like, hey, what? He's gonna marry who? I don't give a shit. And I was just like, yeah. And I said, and sometimes you'll get authors that you like, but they're so hamstrung by the publishers that they can't do anything with the character. So like Tom King, I love Tom King. I love his work. But I hated his run on Batman. I really hated it. I tried to like it. I gave it a shot twice, and both times I was just let down. Like, you know when you finish reading a graphic novel and you're like, okay, can I return this now? Like, that was the feeling I got with those. And I love Tom King. But I said to her, I was like, that is basically the state of comics. I was like, if you like any character, you are faced with the fact that in many cases, you might be more of an expert on that character than the person writing it. You know, it's you love that character. You've read all those stories growing up. Well, it's a possibility that whoever takes over that character has not spent many hours of their life reading every fucking Batman story. They probably had a life. They did other things. Or, you know what? Superman's really their character, but they can't write for Superman. So they're going to take the job and write for Batman. And then you get this the substandard approach of, you know all the connections. Why doesn't he know that Catwoman wouldn't say that? Don't you remember issue la da 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 da? Right? You get this with Star Trek too, right? People who all the time, people who write for the Star Trek movies, who like don't actually know anything that's going on from the series, and you're like, dude, Kirk would never do that. I mean, like, you know, he'd at least ask their name before he date raped them. So yeah, but this was the first time that she was experiencing this, and she was so irritated. Like she was. She never writes reviews. The fact that she wrote a review, like that is a level of irksome for her. And I was just laughing about it because I was like, this is the whole soap operas. You know, it's like somebody else took over and forgot that, you know, this was the 6th time that Cyclops had died, not the 4th, right? Every time someone goes back to write like a Batman Year 1, you're like, okay, will this negate all the other Batman Year 1 stories, or is this a new Batman? Like, and you just get into this gel state where you're kind of like, it's all canon and none of it's canon. And then when you actually pick up a book, you really just iron out the parts of the canon that you need. It's like I'm using as Batman as an example, right? You pick up a Batman book and you're like, okay, is this Ninja Batman? Is this Detective Batman? Is this Asshole Batman? Is this I've got a plan for fucking everything? Is this Magic Batman? Is this Brilliant Batman? You know, which Batman is this Batman who desperately realizes he's lonely and wants to have like kids and a wife? Like, what do I have to solidify from the vast canon of Batman in my head so that I can make sense of this story?
Well, this is why the Vertigo thing and like Marvel Knights and Marvel Max, that's why I've always liked when they spin off these imprints, so that people can just say, I don't care about this. I just want to write this story that I've got in my head for this character and just do it.
Yeah, it's a whole other universe where you were allowed to fuck around. Yeah.
Right, and you don't have all the baggage.
Yeah,
some people
was great.
Look, some writers, I'm sure, delight in that challenge.
Listen.
All right, how do I make a new version of this thing that's been done? All-Star Superman, right?
No, but the baggage is okay if you can wield it.
Well,
but
that's what I'm saying is,
wield
I
it
like
if you
the fact.
know. Yeah.
Well, and that's where I think something like Max or Vertigo lets you say, you know what? I don't care about all that stuff about Batman.
Ultimates.
All I care about is a guy who dresses up as a bat. Whatever.
Remember how popular Ultimates was when it came out? Like, listen, by the time when Ultimate Avengers came out, which is just called the Ultimates, Avengers was like, I grew up mostly reading X-Men because Avengers was a boring book. Yeah, it was nice to read Iron Man now and then, right? It was nice some of the stuff they did with Captain America, but by and large, you read X-Men because X-Men were fucking cool, right? I much more identified with X-Men, and the writing was better. And then they came out with the Ultimates, and the Ultimates was fantastic. And I think it was fantastic for me because I didn't give a shit about the Avengers baggage. Whereas I didn't like Ultimate X-Men because I really didn't love the baggage that came from X-Men that I'd grown up with. But Ultimates was great. And the sales were fantastic in those things. People loved Ultimate X-Men. They loved the Ultimates. They loved Ultimate Spider-Man. I think Ultimate Spider-Man went on the longest, didn't it?
Yes, because I think that's where Miles Morales came in. So yeah.
Yeah, and that thing is, sometimes it's nice to just shed the baggage and start over. Even though you do love those stories, you really kind of have to keep the canon pretty stringy and jelly, so you can just use it when you need it. I mean, listen, I love the White Knight book they did with the Joker, right?
Right.
But that's a lousy Batman. I think that's
Oh,
probably
sure.
one of my least favorite visions of Batman. Like, he kind of comes off like a dumb brute.
Yeah.
But it worked for the story. And it's not a Batman story. It's a Joker
Right.
story. You know, so you're like, okay, that's fine. And that's what you have to... You become very flexible with the mythology. You know? And my wife isn't really there because she's still used to, you know, authors pretty much writing all their books, you know. And listen, I like that too. Terry Pratchett passed away, and he basically said there's no more Discworld books. You know, and I'm like, you know what? That's fine. I don't want anyone to write Discworld books. Terry Pratchett did that, and he did a really good job of it. Right? You know, I don't want someone else to try and write Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book, even though Mostly Harmless was a depressing end for the Hitchhiker's Guide series to conclude, because I know Douglas Adams. I can totally imagine 1,000 ways that he would have changed that. You know, he would have had something happen that would have been so ridiculous and dry and funny that you would have been like, oh, that's really funny. But he didn't get a chance. He passed away. But I don't want somebody else to write his books because there was a unique voice to that actor. To that author, right? And it's like, yeah, I let new people do new stuff. You know, and this whole thing, like you know, when there's like a million Tom Clancy books, and they still put his name on them in like huge writing. I'm like, God, Tom Clancy's been dead for a while, guys. I was like, you know, do we really need another Jack Ryan book? Can't we get like make up a new character? And I don't know if it's that they do it because they're lazy, or people still buy them because like we just get comfortable with. It's the Star Trek effect, right? We just want our crew and our ship, and we're kind of like, I don't really care. I mean, it's easier with TV, right? Because every episode of a show is usually done by somebody else, right? So it's do you think you're more lenient with a show when it gets its own characters kind of wrong sometimes? You know, like you watch an episode and you're like, geez, Worf is acting like this is not how Worf acts. Then the rest of the time it's okay.
I don't think so. I think I'm just as intolerant of it as any other medium. I think if you're gonna, you know, unless the idea is to somehow give us an alternate version, or you know, but if the idea is supposed to be these are the same characters the whole time, then no.
Yeah,
unless
try
it's
to keep
intentional,
it
then
yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Now that's not to say that
she...
you can't evolve a character to be completely different. You can absolutely do that, and that, you know, because people can change over time, but that has to be done gradually. It can't be.
Yeah, and
it can't go instantly. That's a complaint that a lot of people have when these aren't done well. Is, oh wait, he was a different person a week ago. What happened?
Yes, yeah. So my wife was complaining about this, and I went and I started digging around because I was fascinated what other people had to say about this. And essentially, people said that what they really liked about this Mitch Rapp character was that when Vince Flynn was writing him, there was a level of humanity to him. Right, he wasn't just a killing machine superhero type of thing, right? And then when Vince Flynn took over, he made him more of a unstoppable killing machine. Whereas this guy Don Bentley has taken over, and he's made him a kind of two-dimensional, unstoppable superhero killing machine. And you're like, yeah, at some point or another, they lost the humanity. You know, and I'm like, oh, and that makes sense because that's kind of what happens, right? It's a derivative, right? It's not the source material. You got a derivative work, and now you've got a derivative of a derivative. So like the telephone game, you know, the character, suddenly it's like, yeah, it started out that, you know, he walked through shallow water, and then by the end he walked on water. So it's, I just thought it was interesting that she was experiencing this thing that I know that you and I and many comic book readers have experienced for decades and have sort of a really complicated sort of way of, dealing with it. Where, like, it doesn't really bother me anymore because I'm like, whatever, that's not my Batman. That's interesting. It's not my Batman, you know. And we have that. What are the big characters that cause the most problems in this respect? Because it's like Batman, Wolverine, I mean, those are the
Well,
big two.
Superman. They
Superman.
not
yeah.
as much anymore, but there used to be a lot of variation in his power set. So
Oh yeah.
one group of writers, he could only lift a mountain. The other one was having him literally juggling planets.
He could
So
throw
it
the
was like,
fucking Earth. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even in the movies, we talked about the whole
Well-
flying backwards to turn back time. Like, that's not Superman's power.
yeah. But
Or
I
when
mean-
he took
I mean,
the
but
S off and threw it on somebody like a big roll of saran
Oh
wrap. That's
yeah,
not
you're like, geez,
Superman's
that's a
power.
thing. Yeah. Well, when Tom King wrote the Supergirl series, I don't know what it's called, but he wrote his Supergirl
yeah,
book.
yeah, which is great.
Yeah, that book was so phenomenal that like I want that to be canon to that character. I want that to be the backstory to every version of Supergirl that I've ever seen. But I know for a fact that there's plenty of writers that write her like she's a fucking idiot. She's like the dumber, weaker Superman.
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, that's not what I want. I was like, she's the harder Superman. She's the Superman who really has to think about pulling her punches because she has suffered. But that's the canon problem. Like, what's canon? I've had a lot of canon conversations of late too, because my son has gotten into the Lord of the Rings movies. We finally finished the Hobbit trilogy, which really just broke my connection with all the Lord of the Rings, because I was like, whatever. I'm just done with this. Like, I still love the originals. Don't get me wrong, the first 3 Peter Jackson movies. I still love the extended editions, but yeah, the Hobbit was just a mess. But that triggered this thing in my son where he was like, he really wanted to like know, what's canon and what's this one, and he's been watching them all over and over, and I told him that the Ring of Power series is out, and he's like, when does that take place? Can we watch that? And I told him, I was like, that's like 3,000 years before Lord of the Rings, or something like that. And he was like, oh, interesting. And I'm like, yeah. And like, I'm not thrilled with it, but I mean, we watched the first episode and he's pretty thrilled with it. And I was like, you know what? Like, maybe this wasn't made for me. And the thing is, at least they're trying really hard to fit it into canon to some degree. Like to the movies, not to the books. I know that it's impossible to fit canon to Tolkien's books because it's mostly elves, because the humans die every 5 minutes because the elves go on for thousands of years. But he's gotten very focused on canon of sorts, and like we're watching Strange New Worlds, and he's very interested in like what series comes after that canon wise. I just realized Enterprise existed the other day. I don't know how I forgot Enterprise, but we were watching the time travel episode in the second season of Strange New Worlds, and they talked about Archer in the original Enterprise, and I was like, oh fuck yeah, Bakula. It's like, how did I forget Bakula? And then my son's like, can we watch Enterprise? And I was like, I never watched Enterprise really. I was like, so maybe I'll go back and I'll watch Enterprise with you. Maybe
it's not that bad. It's not.
We've talked about
it's
I know it's not that
the
bad.
middle seasons drag.
Yeah.
They will drag.
But here's the thing, I watched all of Capaldi, and a lot of those episodes dragged.
No, I'm just saying Enterprise at the time got dumped on quite a bit.
No,
the first season is good. The last season is good. The middle seasons, they went a long way with that time war thing. But there are really good episodes among them.
I think that I'm going to, maybe after we finish Strange New Worlds, be like, okay, let's watch the rest of Star Trek.
Well, I think you'll find it better
order.
than you think it will be, because the popular conception around. I mean, don't get me wrong.
No, but I just figure, let's watch it in canon order and see how it feels. It's like, let's go watch Enterprise, and then we'll watch Discovery, and then we'll watch we'll go back to the original series, right? And then we'll
I'll say something that might strike people as a controversial statement.
That?
I would watch Enterprise before I'd watch the original series.
Well, yeah, Enterprise comes first.
No. I don't care about that. I just don't enjoy the original series very much.
Oh,
in general, I find it better.
There's a better production value. There's better writings, but there are episodes of the original Star Trek that are very good.
Well, there are episodes of every series of Star Trek that are excellent.
And I think that's what it is. Honestly, I wonder if somebody has a compiled list of the best episodes of every.
What are you kidding?
Show
of course.
They must.
Of course
but it's opinion. That's the problem, is that it's opinion. And here's the thing. One of the things I like about watching the original Star Trek is that, like, you realize that it was written in a different era, because there's shit that Kirk does that you're like, what? All
right, so here you go. I've got, would you like the 20 best or the 100 best?
Oh, honestly, like I would watch the 100 best chronologically in order with my son. But the problem is, You need the other episodes to create
Ooh,
the background.
You know what? Oh, Strange
number
New
one
Worlds
episode?
with the animation crossover is number 18 on that list. So there you go.
No shit. It's a really good episode. What's number one?
On the 20. Oh wait, all right.
Yeah,
wait, before I
on the
look at it,
20.
let me. Okay, I'm gonna make a prediction. It's gonna probably be okay. Let me think about this. There's 3 that I can think of, because I stopped at number 7, which is Best of Both Worlds, which I'm actually kind of surprised isn't higher up. But then again, it is all of Trek. So my guess is it's either going to be City on the Edge of Forever, the one where they have to let the woman die to stop the Nazis.
Yeah, that one's
because that's
commonly high on the
always
list,
cited.
Yeah.
Measure of a Man, the one where Data is on trial and they're gonna take possession of him, and Riker has to argue against him.
Yeah.
And then the last one would probably be oh god, I'm blanking. Oh my god, why am I blanking? Shit, the crap. Wow, I completely blanked.
What series was it?
No, it would be Next Gen. It would be another Next Gen one. Oh, you know what? Because it was the Best of Both Worlds. That's why I'm looking right at it. It's number 7. So no, so it'll be one of those 2. Let's see.
All right,
Sorry, I was
so
getting
what's
mixed up
number
because I was
one?
looking right at it. Number 1, Darmok. Really?
Which one's that?
That's the one where the guy's speaking in metaphor. Remember, they're on the planet and he can't tell what the guy's saying. And, Darmok and Jalad at the walls of whatever. And there's the invisible. You don't remember?
That one. Is that original Trek?
No, that's Next Gen. That's the one where Picard ends up
I
on
don't
the planet.
remember. I don't remember all the episodes because it's been a while.
Oh,
since I
you know
watched
what? Number 2 is a good pick. Far Beyond the Stars, the DS9 one where Sisko is back in time as a black man who can't get his stuff published, and he's working at the it's reality based. It's in the 50s.
You know what? One of my favorite
Number
DS9
3, by the way,
episodes
is City on the Edge of Forever. On the 20
There you
list,
go.
I'll look at the 100. Go ahead, I'm listening.
the episode where Sisko is stuck out of time and he keeps seeing his son,
Oh, that's a great one. Yeah, I remember
and
that
then
one.
at
I don't
the
know what it's
end,
called,
his
but I
son
remember it.
figures out how to send him back as an old man.
All right,
Yeah.
here's the 100. On the 100 list,
We're not going to go all through all of them, but yes, by all
no.
means, what's number 1?
All right, number 1 is The Inner Light, the Next Gen one where Picard lives a lifetime as the other guy. A lot of people do not think that's good. So see, this is.
It's opinion.
know
That's
that.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's
it's
very
good.
opinion. So it's
However,
number
2 is City on the Edge of Forever.
2. Yes,
Predictable.
which is hits
Number
on a lot of
3
lists.
is Best of Both Worlds, which makes a lot of sense. That's the Borg one. And then, let's go through the top 10. 4 is Trials and Tribulations. Okay, yeah, that's a fun one. It's Tribbles.
That's
number-
the Deep Space
original.
Nine one, right?
Yes, that's the Deep Space Nine one where they go back and see it. That's a great one.
Yeah,
that's a great episode.
That's a really funny one. Yeah.
That's one of the first TV shows that did the kind of integration where the two things were together
old
really
footage
well,
and the
where
new
it was pretty
footage, yeah.
seamless. Yeah, it was really, really
Yeah.
well done. And of course, you have the whole thing with Worf and trying to explain why he has ridges and they
Klingons.
don't, which is hysterical. All right, number 5 is Best of Both Worlds Part 2. I would just count those as one, but okay. I don't know why the first. I guess the first part has the huge cliffhanger where Riker's like, "All right, blow him up." Let's see. 6 is. Ooh, In the Pale Moonlight. That's the one where Sisko is okay with the war crime that Garak does. That's a good episode. That's a good call. The one where he's
Deep Space
telling it
Nine
all,
really
and then
liked
at the end he says, "Erase this," because he's like, "I'm going to have to live with this erased log." Yeah, that's a good one. 7, Mirror Mirror, the original Mirror Mirror. Yeah, okay. That started the whole Mirror Universe thing. So yes, that's a good one
it's
for a top 10.
the goatees in the first season,
Yeah,
in the original
evil
show.
Spock.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? That's a good example of an excellent old one. Not only because it's, of course, the reversing of them, but because Spock, even in his evil form, isn't evil. His logic kind of permeates.
Well, it's cold. It's cold logic.
Well,
but it's
he
still
always
logic.
is, but he recognizes, he's like, no, you know what? I'm not going to kill you, type of thing. 8 is Yesterday's Enterprise, where they're in that's the one where they go through the warp and then they're at war with the Klingons and they're losing. I remember that one. Okay, sure. 9 is The Visitor, and that's the one you were talking about, the time traveling one where Jake is 40. And he keeps seeing his dad.
Yeah.
That's The Visitor. And 10, Measure of a Man. There you go. Oh, 11. 11, all right, here's an interesting one. 11 is Duet. You remember that one?
Which one's that?
That's the one, I think it's first season. That's the one where they capture what they think is the Cardassian, like, captain who killed all these people, and you find out that he was actually his clerk, but he's trying to take blame for it because he did nothing. You remember that one? You should rewatch that one. I rewatched that one. That one is fucking excellent.
I should rewatch all of them. But the funny thing is, like, I might actually rewatch all of them in chronological order.
No, but that's one I've even considered telling my wife to watch with no knowledge of the rest of Deep Space Nine, because I think it works. I think it works without it, because
Now,
you understand it's a Nazi parable. Like, you get it.
Well, yeah. I think the thing with kids is that you have to give them something they get hooked on, and then once they're hooked, you can kind of take them into the series.
Well,
so like for my kids,
that would do it.
Yeah, it's Strange New Worlds and then Lower Decks.
Sure,
Strange New Worlds got my son. Lower Decks got my daughter, and now I might be able to carry them through. With Doctor Who, I started with Matt Smith because Matt Smith was the most accessible Doctor to them.
You could have gotten him into Star Trek with the Q episode where he loses his powers. That would have been great. Where he's like, what's wrong with me? My stomach hurts. And she's like, you're hungry. That's child. He's like a child. He is like a child.
Well, he's like a superpower child.
Yeah, he's so great. That's a great episode. Oh man. Yeah.
So yeah, it's the whole canon issue is always interesting, and I know that, like, that's always a question, right? We're like, is it canon? They killed this character. Was that canon? Like, is that character dead? Like, yeah, and it's always a thing. But what's amusing to me is that you and I have become so flexible with this because we've had to be through decades of comics and shows and shit. Whereas, like, my wife, this is the first time they've really fucking pissed her off. So I was like, I was like, there you go. It's like, this is how to handle it.
But you know what? It makes sense though, because when you read comics or you watch a lot of this type of stuff, specifically comics, but anything that's long running, you do have to at some point reckon with the fact that canon is going to be flexible.
It has to be.
You know? Yeah, I mean, that's why a lot of people still just have a lot of problems with the fact that George Miller doesn't care about Mad Max having any consistency. He doesn't care. He said multiple times, I don't care. That's why things are contradictory. Who cares?
What consistency are they looking for?
Well, I mean, the times don't make any sense.
How quickly it goes from the first movie to Road Warrior? Yeah,
he has the same interceptor, even though it gets destroyed, 3 times? Doesn't make any sense. The same guy plays the gyrocopter guy in the second movie, and a different character in the third movie that flies a thing. Same guy, acts the same way with the same basic outfit, and yet he's a different character.
Well, maybe in George Miller's imagination, there's a lot of just
no. George Miller has said, "I don't care. I don't care."
Right,
he specifically said, "It's not supposed to be."
I enjoy all those movies, so maybe I don't care either.
Well, what a lot of people, and I think he has said he thinks this is a great explanation, is all these are stories being told by people who interacted with him, but they're not real. In other words, they're either exaggerated or there are things changed because the storytelling.
The whole idea is they're tales told about Mad Max.
Well, the thing is, if you actually watch the movies, it absolutely makes sense. The first movie is the only one that is presented as objective reality, right? The second one, the feral kid is telling the story. The third one, the kids are telling the story. The woman's telling the story to the kids. Fury Road
that's Furiosa's story, isn't it?
Correct. And then in Furiosa, there is a narrator who is the old man in the So who's
telling. It's always a story told by somebody. Yeah.
And that's a great way to do these movies.
Yeah,
because,
I never thought of that, but that does work. Yeah.
It works beautifully, and it allows him to be like, I don't care if this thing happened and this thing didn't happen.
It's funny. I'm learning. I'm doing a course right now in Greek mythology, which I thought was gonna be really boring, and it's actually been really fucking hilarious because this woman that's teaching the course, she gets it deep, and I didn't realize that a lot of this mythology that I thought was kind of nailed down was as happenstance as it was. That, like, some of these legends that we know now came to be slowly over hundreds of years, ended up being the stories that we now know. Where, like, and at different times, the time periods, there were different versions of those stories told. Where someone was a god or was not a god, or someone's child was immortal or they weren't immortal. And, like, it's interesting how over time, and even, like, the stories moving around, suddenly you get these creation myths, and then what's fascinating is how sometimes you have myths that are parallel from somewhere else. Like there's Greek myths, and then there's, what was it? It was the Mesopotamian myths, and there was a bunch of them that are really similar. And the question is, well, did they both originate from some other older myth that we don't have access to anymore, or Was it just are they kind of the same story that just got separated out? And you realize, there's a lot of this very flexible canon in the mythology, in the belief system. And it makes sense because it goes to the idea that people can read the Bible but not use the Bible. You know what I mean? Like it's there, and it's kind of in the canon is kind of in a gel form. You use it as you need it. But today my version of God, maybe didn't drown everybody. Right? Sure. I mean, we like to forget some of these horrible stories. I'm in a New Testament mood today, right? But in mythology in general, we have this ability to kind of have a more flexible sense of canon, and it seems to really be what's going on. I don't think there's firm canon for anything at this point. If anything, it's big enough, like you said. If there's multiple stories told and whatnot, then it just starts to. You kind of get to pick and choose the reality of it,
right?
So I just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was entertaining and it was an interesting thing that happened. And now my preamble is done. There you go. That's all I had.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. You had nothing else.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't have anything else.
Well, I have a movie review. No sound clips. Now, unlike last episode, where I had no problem playing Spanish clips.
Did anyone complain?
Not a peep. Not yet.
Oh, good.
Not yet. Now, some people don't listen until a week or two later, so we may get something saying.
Some people don't listen.
But I think, you said, are you going to do this? And I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. I don't care because you were able to
It's funny. It was funny to me.
So, yeah. And honestly, I have a hunch there are large amounts of people who either as a primary or secondary language speak Spanish. So it's fine. Now, this movie, though, is in Chinese. So I'm not going to do that.
Follow that.
No. It would be, unless you speak Chinese, it would be incomprehensible, I would assume. And I don't even know what dialect it's in, so it may not even be understandable to somebody who, quote, speaks Chinese, end quote. Anyway, the movie is called Twilight of the Warriors Walled In. I've been hearing about this movie for at least a year.
Well, that's a hell of a title. Twilight
of the Warriors Walled In. So, as I said, this came up on multiple lists as the best action movie of the year.
Is this 2024?
Well, 2024, yes. It was released in Hong Kong and China earlier in the year, and it only just became available to rent digitally. Fortunately, and I think this is because it's Chinese.
Man, there's some hair in this movie.
Oh, well, it's set in the 80s. So.
Oh, that you know what? They nailed that.
Yeah, they did. So it's only like $6 to rent on Amazon, which it's exceptionally good value for that. You can buy it for, I think, $7 or $8. So the film, there's a couple things that appealed to me about it just hearing about it. One, the time is being set in the 80s. I always enjoy stuff like that. The fact that a lot of people said, yeah, this is kind of a classic Hong Kong action film, which it definitely is. And it's set in, I never know how to pronounce this, Kowloon or Kowloon? The walled city that used to exist. It's gone now.
Yeah.
But this was a real place. Look this place up if you've never heard of it. It is a fascinating thing to read about. This city that within a city that grew, that basically it was a poverty city where there was no law inside of it because no one wanted to go in there. It's amazing to read about. It's such a weird place. So this movie is set inside of there, and basically there is a guy whose name is, well, I could never really tell what they were pronouncing. I'm going to say Chan, because that's the name, so I'm just reading it phonetically. Chan is he is an immigrant who comes into Hong Kong, and he is kind of co-opted by some local thugs who say, hey, do some work for us, and we will get you a fake ID so that you can stay here. And they bring him.
Did that motherfucker just pull a cyber ninja on that guy's sword?
Oh,
am I seeing that right? Did he just fucking catch that shit with his mouth and break it?
Okay, so we'll get into there's some supernatural stuff that comes later. So,
sorry,
some people had a problem with. I did not, but so
no.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to be very clear. I don't have a problem with it.
Oh,
I think it's fucking hilarious.
Listen, this is not a grounded film. I don't know why people think it is. It is not a grounded film. This is a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon reality.
Oh yeah,
okay?
these guys are flying around. Yeah.
Yeah. So the local crime boss, or one of them, is Mr. Big, who's played by Sammo Hung. Classic Sammo Hung. And he basically, they give him, they like, oh yeah, you did this thing. Here's your ID, and it's crap. And he says, this is a junk ID. And he's like, oh well, you can just keep doing work for me, and we'll get you a better one, because this is like their move that they do for immigrants who have no other options, because you're not supposed to. They're illegal aliens, basically, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
And so if the cops catch you and you don't have correct ID, you get deported or arrested. So he basically decides to steal from Sammo Hung. He grabs a bag of what he thinks is money. It ends up being drugs. And he's running from them and ends up escaping, quote unquote, into the walled city. The walled city is run by another crime lord named Cyclone, who we find out he and Mr. Big have a past. And in fact, there are really three major crime lords. There's Mr. Big, there's Cyclone, and there is, they never give, I know he had a nickname, but I can't remember. But another guy, I'll call him long-haired crime lord, because the other two are short-haired.
Is the guy with the big hair?
The guy with the sunglasses?
Yeah.
No, he's Mr. Big's enforcer. He's the one who has supernatural powers. No, so the other three are older. Or, well, Cyclone, I'm pretty sure Sammo Hung is actually older. I think the other two are, we sprayed gray into their hair older.
Yeah, they look like they're,
Yeah, they're fake older.
They're oldered, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So we find out that basically there is this kind of uneasy tension between all three. But now that this person has stolen, Mr. Big is trying to make an inroad into taking over the walled city, which he's never been able to do. And Cyclone is, Sammo Hung is kind of the classic crime mob boss type, where Cyclone is more of the Dr. Doom type, where he is very tough, but he takes care of everybody inside the walled city. And he's actually more of kind of a beloved leader. So like within, Latveria, people like Doom. Outside of it, they think he's a monster. But inside, everybody understands that he's just very tough, but he's very fair, and he will be just to those who follow the rules. That's the same thing. That's what Cyclone is, basically Dr. Doom, for all intents and purposes, except without a burned-up face. And so inside, we start encountering these different kind of kooky characters. The primary ones being the, I'm trying to remember all their names, the medic, whose face is completely covered with bandages, mummy style, and you know something is, and you find out later that he was all cut up. It's not too bad, but almost the whole movie he's got bandages on. There is Cyclone's second in command, who is basically he's like the nice version of the sunglass guy, who is a true scumbag, but also has magic powers. He's the only one who has magic powers, because he has, as he explains it, he's able to harness his chi in a way that nobody else can. So he's not really super powered unless you don't believe that chi is real, but that's a big thing, and so fine, whatever. He's harnessing his inner strength.
Listen, I don't know. Tornado looks like he's got some skills.
Well, they all have superhuman skills, but the rest of them are on the same kind of power level, and whatever his name, I think his name's Tiger. And Tiger is the one who has been able to harness his magical, inner beauty to become, the Hulk. So, essentially, what's his face? I'll call him Immigrant Guy. Immigrant Guy, I don't remember what his name is. Chan eventually ingratiates himself to Cyclone, becomes part of the community, and, Cyclone takes a shine to him because, he has, he's seen this story before, and he realizes that, okay, Chan's a good guy, he's a hard worker, he is just trying to survive, and so he kind of starts to favor him. And then there's a point where all the crime bosses meet, and the long-haired crime boss guy, whose name I can't remember, not Cyclone, not Sammo, he keeps talking about, he's saying to Cyclone, have you managed to find that guy who murdered my family? And Cyclone's like, no, I'm still looking for him. And as soon as you hear that, you know that, of course, this guy is going to be the one who, well, no, it's not him. It's the son of the guy. So this guy is the son, because he says, I think everybody's dead except for his child, his son, but we've never been able to find out who he is. So you know who it is. Of course it's the new guy. There's no drama otherwise. And of course, eventually he finds out, and this gives Sammo Hung the kind of permission to come in, and he starts to take over the walled city, and they start fighting, and basically they all get majorly fucked up, but they manage to escape. So basically it's Chan, medic guy, Cyclone second in command, because Cyclone gets killed, of course, and I can't remember who the fourth guy is.
He looks so cool.
He is. And then there's a fourth guy. I don't remember who the fourth guy is part of the team is. AV. I think AV. Yes, AV is the fourth guy. And so they all kind of manage to escape, but Chan is like, we have to go back. We have to go back, and we have to, free the walled city, because that's what Cyclone would have wanted. And, he died trying to save me and all the rest of it. So they go back in, and they go in, and they manage to, they have big fights, and including a huge end battle with Tiger, where he is doing superhuman things far beyond what anybody else could do. But of course, they manage to get the upper hand, and they take over the walled city and basically expel all of Sammo's guys. They're all gone, so they're kind of running it. They're trying to run it like Cyclone did. And at the end of the movie, they're sitting there and they're looking out, and one of them says something along the lines of, well, let's enjoy this as long as it lasts, because it's not going to last forever. And then there's a little thing at the end that says the walled city was torn down in like 1990, whatever. So indicate. But they are going to make sequels to this. There's already one sequel in development, because this was based on a book called...
Graphic novel. It's based off a graphic novel.
Oh, okay. It says novel here, but graphic novel. Okay. So City of Darkness is what it's called. And so they're making a sequel because this was very well reviewed. And I think it made a ton of money everywhere but here. And it's reviewed very well here. So, like I said, I know they've already greenlit a sequel called... let's see. What is the sequel called? They announced the name. I don't see it here. It's Twilight of the Warriors : something. I just don't remember what it is. So, what you really care about... There's a couple things that make this really, really good. Number one is all the fighting. The fighting is great.
The fighting looks fantastic.
They do a lot of multi-level things where people are, going from level to level. They utilize the walled city thing really well.
They apparently built a very big set for this.
Well, and it makes sense. This is the kind of stuff where, there's fighting, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon has really good fight scenes. A lot of them are outside. A lot of them are in big areas.
Oh, the one in the inn. Around. The one in the inn where she fights everybody with the green sword. That's a really good one.
They're all really good. But that one
flying around the fucking building.
Oh yeah, no. It's an exceptional movie. But a lot of those fights are big and airy, which is where you get that balletic, however you're supposed to pronounce it.
Some of these look very tight.
These are almost all very claustrophobic, and there's a lot of really tight movement where they clearly had to do a lot of training not to accidentally smash their heads into a wall. And the interesting part about this is, at one point, this was originally, they started doing the idea of doing this movie started way back in like the late 90s. And they were originally talking about John Woo doing it with Chow Yun-fat and some of the big names like Andy Lau, all these big names at the time. And for whatever reason, and I don't really understand why, maybe it was a money thing, maybe there's other things going on, it kept getting delayed. They finally made it. So it is interesting to think what it would have been like for those people at that time, because obviously Chow Yun-fat would go on to do Crouching Tiger, so we know he can do that stuff. Tony Leung is well known, so is Andy Lau. Like, there's the names in this these are big names, but everybody in this is sensational. Like, the fight scenes are, I can't think of a bad one or one that was not so well choreographed. That's really, and because the location is so unique, because this place was real. Now, I don't think they did a one-to-one.
Is Tornado a barber?
Yeah, Cyclone. Cyclone is a barber. Yes.
Cyclone,
yes,
yeah.
he is. Yes, he runs the local barbershop. It is fantastic. Yes. So it is. It feels like a movie from the time it's set. It has that old school feel to it.
I feel like I've seen a version of this movie when I was a kid.
Yes, and that's exactly what you will feel.
But I mean that in a good way. Like in a good way.
No, I agree. This is the only real parts where it feels out of the time that it's set in is at the end where they're doing like fireworks and stuff. A lot of that feels very CG. You can tell that's more modern. Because I understand why they wouldn't want to risk setting the set on fire, so I'm sure they did not use any real fireworks in an enclosed set that they spent all this time building. I get it. But it's pretty clear what it is. So there's some moments of what I would call lesser CG work that will kind of remind you that this is a modern film. but most of it feels of its time because it is very traditional Hong Kong kind of action fighting where there's some just like Jackie Chan level complexity where, all these different things and props are being used. It is very clear that a lot of it is practical or, practical within reason. Let's put it that way. I'm sure they had safety wires and everything, but they're not rag dolls, Blade 2 style rag dolls jumping around from wall to wall for the most part. And that enhances it. So if you are a fan of action films, especially the Hong Kong variety, but just in general, if you like choreographed fighting, this thing is exceptional. It was great. I was waiting because I kept hearing and reading about it and all this stuff, and I was like, all right, when is it going to... And I assumed it was going to be a $20 rental, which I would have been fine with, but it's not. It's only, I think, $6 or $7. It's cheap. And I think it's because there is no English version of it. It's just in Chinese with subtitles, and I'm sure that's what affects the price of it. But absolutely worth it. I will buy this when it comes out on 4K. I will get it instantly because it was such a good time. I mean, this is, like you said, you feel like you've seen this movie before in terms of how it proceeds.
Yeah, in a good way. I watch
the best
these
way.
movies. I like these movies,
Yeah. Yep.
Like, and I imagine there's no guns, right? And that's kind of the thing is that
no, there are guns, but
guns?
the guns are like last resort by the main lieutenant.
Yeah,
he starts firing a machine gun and hits nobody really.
John Woo made guns into like an art form.
Yes.
Right.
No, but most of it is hand to hand. Almost all.
Most of it's
there are
hand-to-hand.
Swords. There, staffs,
axes, wrenches. Yeah, I saw that guy stabbing things with his 2 fingers. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, that type of thing. So yeah, there are guns, but they're such a minimal part, and honestly, they don't have really any effect. They don't. Yeah. There's a part where the bad guy's chasing them with a machine gun. So what it's doing is it's making them jump off of everything. That's what it's for. Not to hit them. It's to make them have to leap off walls and jump around like Spider-Man. Yeah, exactly. So, but outside of that, no, there's almost no guns in it. And it does feel like the bad guy goes to that because he realizes he's losing. So it's kind of like, well, I can do this because I can't do anything else. But generally, nobody else is using guns through the rest of the movie that I think. So it's a great movie. I have no clips. The plot is not going to be difficult for you to decipher. Like I said, as soon as they said, "Oh, the son's been missing," or whatever the phrasing they used, I was like, "Well, I know who this is," which makes sense because, kind of like what you were talking about with comics, and you get that idea of continuity and how flexible it can be, and you get used to it. When you watch enough movies, you have a sense of the time and where you are in the movie. Yeah. So if they're introducing a big concept and they're halfway through, there's not going to be a new character.
I know how this ties in. Got it.
Yeah, they've spent so much time building up this guy that you know that it's this guy, and sure enough, it is. It doesn't hurt the film at all. It just allows them to have more fight scenes. So whatever, it's great. But yeah, don't come in expecting a really deep plot. This is really about atmosphere in terms of the setting and exceptional fight choreography, where you just get to see people who are doing really excellent fight work where, when you actually step back and think about it, because when I rewatch this, inevitably, I'm really going to be paying attention to, okay, how much rehearsal must have gone into this? Watching it the first time, you're just kind of dazed, which is always the case in movies like this, where you're like, holy shit.
Well, it's like watching all the outtakes from the Jackie Chan movies.
Oh, yeah.
We were like, oh, Jesus, you had to do that many times? Wow. Like, this is the one time out of 100 you got it right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's this type of thing. Is I will be curious. I would assume that a physical copy of this will have some of the choreography, how they did it, and I will be really fascinated. Because obviously, in Jackie Chan's time, you couldn't erase safety stuff as easily. So my hunch is
so
there
was less safety.
there was less safety. Yes, he was famously almost uninsurable, I think, unless he lied or used a different name for a while because they knew who he was and they knew what he would do. And the fact that he would do things while having broken limbs and just cover it up with a, famously, what was it? I think Rumble in the Bronx, where he broke his foot and he just pulls a sock that looks like a shoe over it and he's jumping around on a broken foot. Yeah, so when you're doing stuff like that, it's going to be a little tough to get insurance for, the fact that you probably will kill yourself for a movie. So now I think the danger is probably less, but that also means you can be more creative because you're not as worried about something. So they could do multi-level things where the actual actor will do it more often than not when it isn't exceptionally dangerous because there's a safety wire. So if somebody makes a mistake, he's not going to fall to his death. So they're going to be more willing to let you if you want to. And many of these guys, I think, did their own stuff, their own stunt work. You can do that now because you can just digitally erase a safety wire or 3 or 10 or whatever. And in that way, I think that's a positive. It's one of those cases where when people complain about CG, well, that's the good use case. Let's make it safer. And that way, these guys can actually do the stuff, and you can get it in one. There's a lot of one-take things where you're just seeing them doing all this stuff, which I really love, where they don't have to do 80 cuts. So, like I said, if you're a fan of these kind of older action films or just good fight choreography, it doesn't even have to be older films. I'm not saying it will only appeal to people who like older stuff. It will appeal to anybody who appreciates it.
There's a whole generation of people who like John Wick.
I was just going to say, if you like John Wick, you will likely enjoy this quite a bit, unless your favorite thing was the gunplay, in which case, which I don't think was really the point of John Wick, but, there are guns. So.
Yeah, John Wick is an interesting attempt to kind of mix the John Woo gun fu with the actual kung fu.
Well, it's equilibrium. It's kind of
equilibrium
remixed.
Equilibrium is taking the John Woo kung fu to its next level.
I think we've said before, I really would love somebody to continue that idea. Somebody like this to take that idea and run with it.
That movie is such a strange movie because it has such an incredible cast.
Yeah.
For what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't see a movie like Equilibrium being made today quite the same way.
Not in America. I think somebody else would make it well.
But the fact that they had Sean Bean and Bale, it's it had a really solid cast.
Yeah.
And the action was phenomenal.
It is.
That's one of those. I watched that not long ago, probably a few months ago. I watched that again, and you know what? It doesn't look dated because it's its own thing.
No, I watched it 4 or 5 years ago, and I was really surprised because I thought it was going to be worse, and it's really not.
Because they kept the world very minimalist, right? Yep. There isn't a lot of CG usage.
No, not bad. Not bad at all.
And then the fight sequences are very well choreographed.
Like I said, based on seeing this movie, I would like to see this team make a modern or sequel or prequel or whatever of that. I agree. I don't think an American director would do it so well, but the director of this, his name is Sol Chiang, who has a lot of films of this type.
I mean, hey, practice makes perfect.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So hopefully they'll make a sequel and it'll be good.
I know they are making a sequel. This guy did SPL too, so that makes sense. Which is basically the Raid. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to see if it's got what the name of the sequel is. Because I know they said Trial of the Warriors. Let me see sequel. Because I'm curious. It is called. Oh, here we go. Hollywood Reporter. God, this is so cool. Reviving, so the director says plans for prequel and sequel. So, okay, since Cyclone is actually younger, they'll probably do one with him, which would be great. So how he took control. That would be amazing if they could do that. And then I don't know what the sequel. Okay, here, that's recreating. Where does he talk about the sequel? It's just nice seeing Sammo Hung still doing it. He can't really move much anymore, which is understandable.
No, they still had a fight sequence with him.
They did, which I think is probably... They did that very carefully. I'll say it like that. But, okay, here it is. Sequel's in development and working on a prequel to shoot both simultaneously so that they can keep the cast together. Well, that's a great idea. They haven't said the name. He's just saying that the sequel is in development, which I'm sure it is because this is
doing the sequel and the prequel at the same time.
Yeah, which I think is great.
Wow, there you go.
Well, they'll shoot this. I mean, that's kind of what they did with The Matrix, too. But what he's saying is he wants all the same people to be able to do it, which is great because this is the way to do it. So I think it's uniquely positioned to actually have a very good prequel because it's very easy to see them just setting this as what led to where they are now. So there's a lot of backstory there with those 3 main crime lords by itself. And then as a sequel, it would be the 4 younger guys probably right before they demolish it. Something like that. Like, I could see where those prequel sequels would go, and I don't think it's going to be bad. I think with something like this, you have a lot of latitude. That setting alone, you could do so much with, because it is such a strange and unique thing that really existed. But in particular, if you have performers who are good at this type of martial arts, oh man, you could set up so much with that. So much stuff with it, because you could literally have within that city, you could have different biomes almost, or whatever you want to call it, where, you know, because this one has a lot of where they're in the wiring and all the power core or power wires and stuff, which is great. But you could have another one where it's all the machinery that, you know, for the air conditioning or whatever, giant fans running and people are darting through fans and jumping over fan blades, or water purification systems where they're having a water fight and they're like tearing pipes off and hitting each other. I mean, I guess you could do one in the sewers too. It'd be disgusting, but it would give you some possibilities.
I wonder if the graphic novels already exist for this.
Well, let's take a look.
Because, I mean, if it's based off a book, is there a prequel and a sequel book?
I would imagine. Let's see. Or it may have been here. City of Darkness. Let's take a look. Graphic novel. Okay, here it is. City of Darkness, a macho Hong Kong comic exemplar set in the Kowloon. Wow. Oh, wow. Look at that artwork. That is great. Holy crap. That is some kinetic artwork, man.
Jeez, that looks like some Final Fantasy shit right there.
Wow. 32 issue long series. Okay. Well, that's a long series. Interesting. Huh. I mean, it ran for 32 issues. Oh, story continued under City of Darkness 2 for another 100 issues. Okay, well they have plenty of material.
There you go.
Yeah. So, wow.
Yeah, there is a look.
Yeah, I like it. It has that kind of Fist of the North Star type of distorted thing to it, which I like. So, yeah, like I said, I would, especially because you can watch it now for so cheap, relative to how modern.
Listen, 20 years ago, or even like 15 years ago, we would have been waiting for a VHS of this to kind of wash up on our shores.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe some small theater might have gotten a copy of it, maybe in New York or something like that.
Sure.
When you would hear about these movies, but you'd have to wait for sometimes years for a copy to come over. Whereas now we're living in a gilded age where it's like, hey, you can buy it for $6. It's on.
Like I said, a lot of very recent releases tend to be more expensive. So the fact that this one is this good for this cheap, I would say if this movie at all interested you,
because it's a Fern film, man, you got to read it.
Well, right, but hey, you know what? I'll take that deal. That's great. Fine with me.
Anyway, a lot of people don't. That's the.
You know what though? The fans for this film will have no problem because like our experience with continuity, you're well versed in reading subtitles if you've liked Hong Kong action films for a while, because it's not like you weren't getting them all in English. That's for sure.
Whatever. I'm almost done with Shogun, and that's basically a foreign film. Okay.
Yeah. Right. But in English.
No, it's not in English.
Oh, it's not. Oh, good. I didn't know if it was or not.
Oh no. Yeah, the only person who speaks English is the main guy, the British guy. He's not American. Come on, the guy who comes over from England, and then you see his crew maybe once or twice. They speak English, but otherwise you don't see much of them. There's a priest who speaks English to him, like basically the Portuguese.
Well, but they're outliers. That's okay.
Yeah. But if And even the main character speaks more and more Japanese as the movie goes on, as he learns the language. So, and anyone who is Japanese, outside of the translator, speaks Japanese. So there's like episodes where there's very little English dialogue. Yeah. And it is at times. It does really feel like a foreign film, in a good way. I like that they didn't just make it so like, oh, everyone's speaking English, Like, no, they don't. They're speaking Japanese. The only thing they did was they made Portuguese English. So when the translator and the British guy are talking, they're speaking Portuguese to each other. But for the sake of the show, rather than have them speak Portuguese and us reading yet more subtitles, the Portuguese is portrayed as English. But other than that, everybody else is speaking Japanese. It's an amazing series so far.
Well, like I said, that's my only review. I don't have any clips from it.
There you go.
It is a spectacular movie. Available relatively cheap.
They don't always have to be 2 to 3 hour shows.
No, they don't. No.
Sometimes they could just be, an hour and a half.
Yeah, well, and the nice part about a movie like this is I don't have to explain much of the plot because it's pretty simple.
No, it's a cool fighting
movie. This is a spectacle film. You don't have to come in. You can.
Yeah, honestly, watch the trailer. If the trailer doesn't get you, then it's not your movie. Yeah. But I saw the trailer and I immediately was like, I've seen something like this and I want to see it.
Oh yeah, no, it's you will. In fact, well, some people die. I was going to say it's relatively tame in terms of children watching it. What is it rated? Is it?
It's R. It's rated R.
For what? For what though? Because
it's rated for violence.
Yeah, I think that's it. Because I was going to say, there's drugs in it, so yeah.
Plus,
but
it's
not a hard R.
My kids
is what I'm getting
aren't
at.
there yet. They're not at the point where they want to read.
Yeah.
movies.
So here it is, rated R for violence throughout language and some drug content. That's what I'm saying. Oh wow, look at this. I didn't realize IMDb had added this. They actually have a breakdown of what's in it. Sex and nudity, mild.
Oh yeah.
One scene takes place in a brothel.
Because I think IMDb, they hooked up with Common Sense Media.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Oh, these are great. All right, so sex and nudity, mild. One character says, want a hooker, otherwise nothing. What a great end to that sentence. Violence and gore, severe. Lots of violence and gore. Also, we see some women being beaten brutally. Yeah, but they get their comeuppance. Someone's fingers get cut off. Oh, yeah, they do cut one of the main character's fingers off, which I was kind of surprised about. That's right. Profanity, moderate. Alcohol, drugs, and smoking, moderate. Frightening and intense scenes, moderate. There are no frightening scenes. I'll just say right now. There's nothing scary in this movie.
You're a man in your 40s.
I should say, wait, hold on. No, I'm just saying for normal, for of age viewers, there is not scary anything. Intense, yeah, fighting, but unless you have a fear of finger loss, then scary. But outside of that, not scary for adults. But honestly, if you get around to watching this, I will be curious what your opinion is, because honestly I think this is a little overblown. Yeah, there is a lot of violence, but
what is my parental?
Yeah, because there's hard R's.
It's not a kids movie. It's not a hard R. A hard R is when there's like lots of nudity and violence and drugs. And,
yes.
It looks like we'll call it a moderate R.
This movie,
it's violent. It's violent and there's blood and there's and there's violence.
Let me put it like this: I think you could trim 5 minutes from this movie and have it be PG-13.
That's what often happens with movies like that.
Yeah. So that's how little you'd have to change it.
Disney and Marvel got out of a lot of higher ratings by basically just removing blood.
Well, that was Mortal Kombat.
Go back
it from from red to green.
Yeah, but go back to like Winter Soldier. That movie could have had a ton of blood.
Oh yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
But just by eliminating that and making it fairly bloodless, you don't have to worry about that.
Right. Yeah, even though the idea of somebody being psychologically tortured is far worse than seeing some blood.
Yeah, but they don't have a rating for that.
No kidding.
And that is really one of those horrible scenes. I think the two scenes in that movie that always stayed with me was where he kills Tony Stark's parents.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just the awful inevitability of that scene, the way it plays out, and then the scene where he's being tortured and you just hear the screaming.
Oh yeah, it's awful.
You're like, oh yeah.
That's way worse than anything else.
But that's the thing. It's there's no rating for that.
No, there's definitely not a rating. No, rated PG-13 for psychological torture.
Psychological.
For mind rape. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. Rated R for mind rape. How much footage would you have to pull out of RoboCop to get it down to like a PG-13? You got to take out the head explosion thing.
Oh boy,
But I'm trying to think beyond that. Like, there's a scene where someone's breasts get like pulled out in a. Isn't there a scene like that? Remembering?
Well,
that right?
you have to. The Ed 209 shooting scene would have to be trimmed significantly.
There you go. Yeah.
The death of Boddicker, I don't know how you're going to get around that, because that's the whole... I mean, the blood spurts into RoboCop's face from his artery. So, I mean, what do you do? A quick cut of him punching him and then he's just dead?
Yeah.
The melting guy, I guess he's gone. He just disappears.
You know what? I think they changed him on broadcast TV.
They did, but he's still there.
They made him green, right, or something like that.
Yeah, he's green goo instead of red goo. Yeah, and I think and
that guy, that is gross. That is probably, to me, the grossest thing in that movie. When that guy hits him with a car, and he's basically just soft tissue at that point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. God, that scene. I mean, like, it's the bad guy. It couldn't have happened to the. It happened to the right person, but you're still like, oh God.
I would bet somebody's made a joke edit of PG RoboCop, just as a gag.
2 minutes long.
Yeah, because, well, not that it's 2 minutes long, but it's probably such a weird movie without some of that stuff taken left in. But yeah, that's a strange one to think about, because the really harsh scenes, it's not like it's all through. Let's put it this way. It's not like a horror film. Yeah, somebody did it.
Hold on.
Somebody did it. Yeah.
They did something. Hold on.
It was like a super cut. It's probably a joke.
No, there is a TV version.
Oh, I know there was one, but...
Yeah, if you buy the Arrow Video Blu-ray, it includes a bonus feature called Edited for Television. And it's the edited for TV version that they had that was very chopped down.
Oh, yeah, look at this. Here it is. All the F words were edited out. Wow, yeah, there's so many versions of these. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh, they had alternate scenes to work with. See, that makes a lot of sense then. Yeah. So that's... Okay, I wonder, because a lot of times they pulled
a Superman 2 on this shit. Okay.
Well, or more specifically, many times when movies are filmed, if they know the scene cannot be aired on television, they film a different version of it, either with not saying swear words or whatever.
Interesting.
Or with different... Oh, yeah, that was very, very common, because a lot of times that's how they sold these movies.
I'm so curious now to see a TV version and then see like what they took out altogether.
Yeah, here it is. The American Network TV version made extensive cuts to violence, language, nudity, often using alternate takes. Profanity is dubbed over, sometimes in unintentionally funny ways. Asshole becomes airhead, scumbag becomes crumbag, etc. The sole instance of nudity is absent due to an alternate take being used. In terms of violence, many of the shootouts cut around the squibs. Ed 209 does not show any bloody bully hits. Instead, features a single front-facing shot of Kinney stabbing backwards with no squibs or blood. So they probably filmed one where he just kind of shakes and goes backwards, and they didn't ignite anything on the front of him. And then they redid it, and they had it all. Yeah. And music has been added to soften the screaming and gunshot sounds. Oh, this sounds, what is it, like soft Kenny G? Emil's death doesn't cut any of him melting, but does remove the scene. Oh, listen to this.
Yeah.
Emil's death doesn't cut any of the scenes of him melting, but removes the scene where he gets hit with the car, instead using an alternate take where Clarence swerves around him. See? This is how much they would do. This is what I'm saying. They did a lot of stuff like this.
Expensive, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, it was rated X in the first cut.
It was NC-17, yeah. Wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it was X. No, it was
no
NC-17. It was an X rating because specifically when they they built that mannequin of Weller where his head gets blown out.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, if I had gone to see that movie and saw the X rating and then realized there was barely any nudity in it as a young person, that would have been annoying.
Yeah. Right. So, man, that's crazy.
Well, there you go. If you're looking for something interesting and kind of comical to watch, find the TV edit of RoboCop.
Yep. So. There you have it.
Music to soften the
I am kind of curious what the music is, so I might seek that scene out just to see like what are they how do you soften a guy shrieking as a machine cuts into bits? What are you putting in there for that? But obviously they did it. I mean, yeah, I think there's a couple of websites that track all the TV versions of things, and it is really. There is a whole, or was, I don't know if they do it anymore because now with CG and everything it's a lot easier, But yeah, there were whole almost second filmed movies because they knew they couldn't air that stuff, and so they would do a take that was basically acceptable for television, where they wouldn't have to. Yeah, they wouldn't have to dub it or alter it. They just did an alternate take. And many of those cases were like a woman who's going to be nude. Well, they shoot one of the whole scene where she's wearing clothes, and then they do the nude one. So, oh yeah, it's crazy how much of that stuff they would do because they knew. So, yeah. So if you didn't know that, everybody, because you might be younger and this stuff you don't watch TV, so you didn't even know there were TV versions of things. Yeah, some of the movies that you might actually like could have completely different versions. And so the idea of a neutered RoboCop. Whoa.
Superman 2 had that apparently.
Boy, did it.
Yeah.
Talking about that's a pretty significant change. But I would argue that having Ed 209 shoot a guy where there's no blood or squibs, where he just kind of shakes and goes backwards to soft jazz.
There's gun noise, right?
Well, it's don't forget the music is lowering the intensity of it. So again,
it'll be like, I just keep envisioning like soft, saxophone music, just being like, dee 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 dee.
Yeah. But loud enough to drown out the screaming. Well, probably what they did, I'm sure what they did was lower the volume of those effects and then have the music heavier. So they probably just dampened it. I'm curious. I'll go find it. I'm sure it's.
There's clips. I know there's clips on YouTube. I can see them.
Oh, okay. You can't hear it though.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. RoboCop edited for TV. Oh no. Oh, hold on. Is this? Oh, this is it. All right, hold on. Let me see. What can this possibly be? Oh wow. Oh man. Yeah.
Scumbag.
Wait. Oh yeah, there's a
Crumbag.
Wow.
Crumbag,
Yeah, they really did, because you know where he's laying on the table and there's blood everywhere.
Yeah.
They filmed one where there's no blood. He's just laying on the table, but it looks like he just fell down. Wow. And I mean, and some of the cursing that what's his name?
Yeah.
Ferrer does, where he says, instead of fuck, he says forget.
Yeah.
Fuck Jones became forget Jones, man. Like, okay, come on.
You're gonna be a bad mother crusher.
Right? Yeah. Ladies leave. What did they dump that into? What could that have been dubbed to? Babes leave.
You know what? You should link this because it's actually really good. They show you both versions.
Oh, good. Send me the link. I will put that in.
Oh, did you not find this one?
Well, I don't know if I found the same one you did. The one I did shows like the two different versions, like one after the. Is that the one you found?
Yes, yeah, that's the one. Yeah, 6 minutes,
right,
21 seconds long.
That's it. Then I did find it. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, listen, bonehead.
Oh wow! Holy crap! So in 2018, somebody attempted to make an HD version of it. Was it? Oh, it was made. Somebody upscaled the TV version to HD.
What?
So it's a 14 gigabyte file.
Oh well.
You see that? You see that? People are
This
just
is why it's good to ask
insane.
questions, people, because you end up in interesting places.
Oh boy, I love people. Oh, I
I
love
love
people.
certain people.
Well, I mean, these types of maniacs. I like these people. Who else would do such a thing? Hilarious. Well, on that note, yes, I will add a link there, and that if you were never aware of the extent.
Oh yeah.
Because again, if you grew up with streaming
far.
mostly, this doesn't exist. You only see the original. So, yeah, go
There's no
watch
point
some
now,
of this
yeah.
stuff. Oh, but
Yeah.
even if you
And
saw
then
the movies, you might.
Imagine it spliced up with 1,000 commercials.
Well, and the other thing too is there were probably people our age who never ever would watch the made-for-TV versions because they knew they changed them, but they may not have known how much they changed them.
Yeah, and the weird part was when you were younger, talking about flexible, taking it full circle to the whole flexible canon, right?
Ooh, well done.
You would watch these TV movies and be like, holy shit, this is different than the movie. But then you kind of accept it because sometimes you get alternate cuts, you get alternate scenes. And like in the case of Superman 2, scenes that change the movie.
Yes.
So it's like, and then you kind of said, like, I know that with the Dune TV version, there was a bunch of footage they added.
An hour.
Yeah. And so you're kind of like, okay, the TV version has extra stuff that I want, but I also want stuff from the theatrical version. I need to put these together in my head now.
Or even where they would crop it because you didn't have widescreen television. So I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember in Return of the Jedi, there's a part where Han Solo says, "Oh, Jabba, you can't." It's when they're about to get tossed into Sarlacc, and he says, "I don't remember." He says something like, "We're not afraid of you, right, Chewie?" And Chewie growls wrong. That's what he's growling. In the in the widescreen, it's all one shot, but in the TV one, it would very suddenly, weirdly pan over to Chewie because they had to do pan and scan. Pan and scan,
funny.
yeah. So it would have this weird transition, or like in Jabba's palace, you wouldn't see that Boba Fett was on the side of the screen because he was cut off. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of this stuff. If you actually are into this, go look it up. They made so many film, and the way that we have gotten it is so massively different now than it ever was because there were so many technical and, frankly, censorship editorial stuff going on that you could have a legitimately different movie in your head or remember things and think you made them up and didn't because they existed in a different form, like the Superman thing. Because I remembered that. It was so weird. So,
yeah, if you hadn't remembered that Superman thing, yes. That cleared it all up.
Yeah, you'd think, and people
otherwise,
probably thought they were crazy. They were like, "Fuck, I misremembered
yes,
that."
that's
No,
what I
you
mean.
didn't.
It kind of throws your head cannon for a loop because you're like,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
Yeah, it's the Mandela effect, except sometimes it's not. Well, on that wonderful, ambiguous note, go watch something fun, TV editor or otherwise. We'll talk to you again next. Oh, well, no, we won't. We'll talk to you again. Well, I'll be back, but we will be back in a few weeks. All right, enjoy your weekend, everybody. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @OzoneNightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.